Yay! Okay, we're live. Cool. Okay, so today for today's webinar, I'm gonna cut it a little bit short since we started late, but all about fundraising. So there's a bunch of different fundraising that we can do, whether it's groups or individuals or a little bit of both, or grants or scholarship. So there's a lot of different angles that can come for fundraising. But that very first step is to, of course, look at what opportunities are available to you. Of course, we don't want to go for grants if we know that our university doesn't sponsor any chapter grants, or if they don't allow chapters to, or whatever, or student organizations to travel. Then that's pretty high-hanging fruit. So we want to find what's that low-hanging fruit in our campus, on our within our reach, right? Like what is easily accessible, and how do we get that darn fruit off the tree? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a little bit of a presentation. Cool. You guys can see that okay, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, oh no. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. Let me make sure this is the right one.
You can do it.
I was messing around with the titles of things, and I think I edited the wrong one. But we're here. It's cool. This was Fundraising 101. But this is based off of, neither of you guys were at the leadership conference this summer, and I know both of you guys are graduating. So with that being said, definitely pass this on to whoever's going to be taking over as the fundraising director and or the treasurer, because this is going to be mostly important for them, whether it starts this semester or even over the summer or as early as possible next semester. So very first off, I want to remind everybody, you guys, everybody who might be watching this later, that you can do it. Fundraising is one of those things that it's a little bit of a tough situation, because we don't want to focus 100% effort on fundraising, but of course it's necessary to be able to do the things we want to do, aka go to Panama or do really cool events in our own communities. So of course it's a little monotonous, it's a little boring at times, hard, but with that being said, with a little bit of planning, with a little bit of goals, with a little bit of research, we can do it. Shall. So, since we only have two people on our call, but list 5. Okay, we didn't have to do this, but 5 ways that you could raise money individually or with your chapter. I'm actually going to skip this, but basically, this individual or with your chapter is the most important part. Because we have 2 options. We can either focus on individual fundraisers, which means like if I've got a group of 10 people going to exchange, I just worry about me. Good to go. I know that 100% of my efforts are going into 100% of the money that I'm winning. Or there's, of course, fundraising, which is nice to have the support of other people. But, of course, the downsides to that is, when you get $100 at a fundraiser, maybe it has to be split between 10 people. Or if 2 to 3 people are putting in all the work and then everybody expects to reap the benefits. However, there are some group fundraising options that I want to talk about that are very beneficial and that are worth it for many different reasons. Okay, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. So the very first thing that I want to talk about is setting goals for yourself, right? So this is something that we use a lot at Movement Exchange, but this idea of setting goals, I think it's really important for ourselves to ask, how much money do you want to fundraise, both for yourself and for your chapter, right? So if we have this goal of, $13.90 per person plus flights, whatever, maybe we want to try to raise $2,000 per person, whether that's for me an individual or overall as a chapter. 2,000 times 10, that might be kind of a stretch for your entire chapter, but maybe set a goal for yourself. I want to get, $200 for everybody off of an exchange. Think about what smart we kind of use our SMART goals here. Set something that's specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-oriented. I think definitely specific and realistic are probably the most important here, in that, you know, is it going to be for the individual, or is it for everybody? And be realistic. How much do you actually think you can fundraise in the amount of time that you have? So this is something that I would encourage you guys to do with your board, your executive board, either at the start of the semester or at the very end of the semester, is say, okay, for this next school year, for 2018-2019, what are our goals? How much do we want to fundraise? And then the following question is, how are we going to do it? Can both of you guys do a mute really quick? I think there's some like back.
Sorry, that might be my fault. I was typing.
No worries. Thank you. Awesome. So of course, for on-campus fundraising, that would include events that you have to put on. And so with that being said, after we kind of decide how much we want to fundraise as a chapter, how are we going to do it? How many events do you want to have in the fall? So say we want to have one every month. Okay, so September, October, November, December. I want to have 4 fundraising events per semester. Great, done. Who's going to be in charge of the, actually, let me come back to that. Once you have that set, you can say, okay, maybe we'll do it on the 15th of every month, just so that we can be consistent and we know that we're setting that goal for ourselves of once a month, this is going to happen. How much money do you want to raise for each event? And yes, so how much money do you want to raise for an event? This will kind of dictate what kind of event you want to have. Whether it's a dine and donate, which maybe you'll bring in $25. It's a bake sale, which might bring in $100 to $200. Or if it's a big, huge event, that might bring in even more. Or maybe if it's just a workshop, that'll bring in maybe $50 or whatever. So thinking about how much money do you want to raise for each event? So how much money, if you have this big goal and you're focusing on on-campus fundraising, how do you need to divide that up so that at each one of your fundraising events, you're getting that much closer to your goal? And then last, how many people do you want to engage? So how many volunteers do you need? How many executive board members do you need? Does it only involve executive board or general body members? Or do you have to invite people from the outside? Do you have to do recruitment and marketing for this event? Or can it be something more internal? So just some things to think about. And, you know, every chapter is going to do it a little bit differently. But I definitely encourage you guys to, from the very, very get-go, make sure that you're setting goals for yourself. We all know that, you know, yes, we can say we want to fundraise, but as soon as we say, I want to raise $1,000 by February 15th, great. Now we have the start to something. Now we have something that we want to do and when we want to do it by. Then, of course, we just have to figure out how to do it and if we can. Oops. Okay. Cool. So with that being said, as you guys are setting these goals, as you're deciding how you want to do these things, think about the difference between the treasurer and the fundraising director. In some of our chapters, these are 2 different positions. In some, they're not. In some, So in some, in some chapters, they're 2 different positions. In some, they're 1, either just a treasurer or just a fundraising director. But ultimately, each one of these people is going to have to do different things. The fundraising director, and this is all in our chapter resources as well, but the treasurer is really important for like accounting and counting all of the money and making sure that it's getting deposited in the bank or setting up that bank account. And they're going to have to work really, really closely with the fundraising director, as the fundraising director is going to be the one who is organizing the events to make sure that the money is coming in that the treasurer will then look after. Another thing to note is that they might also have to work together on a lot of different things. So if there's a grant that's coming out, maybe have the fundraising director take kind of more of the qualitative stuff. So writing the proposal, writing what's, why you're doing what you're doing, where you're going, and why it's important to you as a chapter, and having the treasurer kind of take over the getting the quotes done. And a lot of times there's like a budget that you need, and kind of getting all of that monetary information for your grant. A lot of times it's nice when you have a little bit of support on these grants, when it's two people working together. Two minds is definitely better for one on these things, so that when you're working on grants or scholarships, making sure that you're not leaving anything blank, that you're kind of hitting all those, you're crossing all those T's and dotting all those I's. So just as you guys are planning for a new executive board and a new school year, which is freaking crazy because this semester went by so fast, but think about if it's necessary for your chapter to have a division between a treasurer and a fundraising director. How is that going to affect your chapter, and is it going to be something worthwhile, or do you think that your chapter can handle just having one person handle it all? Okay, so planning for your fundraising events. That's weird. Oops, sorry guys. Okay, so make sure that you guys are asking the important questions. The best thing to do is like I mentioned, cross those T's, dot all those I's. What do you need to do to have a successful event? And this is something that I think is really important in the beginning stages, because yes, there's a lot of turnover in our chapters. Yes, there's a lot of times when, from one year to the next, the fundraising director, the treasurer is going to change. But if you guys document this information, if you're really clear on how you're going to do it and why you're going to do it that way, then it'll only make it easier for the next person coming in, right? And of course, the first fundraising event is always a learning experience, as I'm sure you guys know. And that's great because you've definitely planned as much as you could, and sometimes there's some unforeseen circumstances, and it's always a learning process. But as much as you can, try to think about what might go wrong or what you might need to plan for. So of course, with events are kind of difficult because not only are you getting money donated to you, hopefully, but a lot of the times it also requires a little bit of investment on your own, right? So for bake sales, for instance, you've got to buy the eggs and the flour and the milk, whatever you need, the chocolate chips. Can't forget the chocolate chips. So you always kind of have to invest somehow into these events. So what you want to make sure of is that, that you're getting a return on investment, so that your profit outweighs your costs, right? That's always the goal, is to get more money in your pocket than before. But it's just something to think about as you're planning these events. Maybe you want to host a huge gala for all of your volunteers and their families and their friends. But once you actually go think about what resources and materials you might need, maybe it's not going to be possible because you'll end up spending more than you take in. But always great to try new ideas as well, and planning those things out as best as possible will only make it easier. Like I mentioned, how will the event cost? How much will the event cost? Do you need to create a budget? How much time will this take? How much of a time investment is this going to be? If it's an all-day event, if it's an event that's going to take you a month to plan, or is it going to be something that you guys know how to do, like you're on it, it'll take you an hour to plan out? Great, golden. But how much time is it going to take, not only for the event itself, but also for planning? So that's definitely something to take into consideration as well. How many volunteers will you need? How many people do you actually need to be on site on the day of your event, at the time of your event, before the event, or after the event? I know I got stuck at a bake sale one time where I had to put all of the cookies away, all of our leftover cookies away, carry my backpack, carry my dance bag, and then I had like our poster boards, and I had to carry the table back into the dance studio by myself, right? So think about those things so that nobody gets kind of trapped in a situation where they've got to carry the bake sale table back, because that's never fun. So just something to think about, so that you make sure that your event is as armed as possible with the people who you need. Who is your target audience? So this depends on who are you going to market to, right? So say this is a bake sale or a dance class that you're having on campus. These are probably going to be college students who maybe have a couple bucks to throw down. They're not going to be throwing 50s or $100 bills or 20s at your face. Probably more than likely it would be awesome if they did. But it's definitely something to consider as you're thinking about who your target audience is. Or maybe it's a big, if you go with that gala idea, which would be super fun, but also kind of hard. But maybe it's a little bit of a higher crowd where you might get some more donations, some larger donations. So that's always something to think about when planning your events. Of course, do you need transportation? Do you have, people who need to be bussed in, or do you need to have cars available? Transportation is always a fun topic, especially when it's hard to find a person with a car. How will you market the event? How are you going to get the word out there? I think there are some events that you have to do a ton of marketing. You have to say, post flyers everywhere, talk to all of your friends, especially if it's like a dine and donate where people are going to need to come to a certain place. Or maybe it's a bake sale where it's on campus and people are walking by all the time. You probably don't need to do that much with marketing. But if it's a big event that people need to come to specifically, then how are you going to get that out to the public? What flyers are you going to use? Where are you going to post them? Who are you going to talk to get people to come to your event? Do we need any special permits? I think this is hugely important, and something that you guys are definitely learning on campus is, a lot of the times when you're doing bake sales or asking for, I keep using the bake sales. I love bake sales, but you don't have to just do bake sales. But if you're doing a fundraising event on campus, a lot of the times you have to have permits in order to sell things, in order to collect money from people. A lot of times there are special permits that are needed, and that takes a little bit of research to know what forms you might need to fill out. What are the requirements? What do you need to do to get your permit approved? And of course, that's something that maybe it's hard the first time, but once you kind of get it down, once you know what the requirements are for that, it becomes much easier. How much will you charge? How much money are you going to charge at your event? Are you going to sell all of your cookies for $1, or are you going to ask everybody for a donation at the end of a dance class? Or are you going to go around to businesses and ask them to donate $100? So think about who I think this and your target audience is very related. Think about how your audience, who your audience is, where they're coming from, what their economic situation might look like, and then reevaluate from there. How will you thank your donors and participants? So if you're collecting emails, if you're collecting names, maybe if you have people who are donating in-kind donations like food or groceries or whatever, how are you going to thank them for participating and for supporting your cause? Are you going to send them a thank you card? Are you going to send them an email? Are you going to thank them in person, take them out to lunch? I think this is something that's widely overlooked in movement exchange overall, even at our national, I'm sorry to say. But it's always something that we're trying to improve upon, because our donors are important. They matter to what's going on here. And we want them to know that they truly are a part of our mission, and what we're doing wouldn't be accomplished without them. And then the last question is, will you make this a recurring event? This is kind of like a post-evaluation question. Was it successful? Was this something that would be fruitful in the future as well? Or is it a bust? And if it was a bust, that's okay, because at least you tried and now you know. So even if your event might not turn out the best as possible, maybe it was the first time you did it was incredible and the second time wasn't as great, that's okay. It's always a learning experience, and it might take a couple years, honestly, to get it off the ground. Especially if you're doing any sort of big events. It takes recognition, it takes practice, it takes time to figure out how to successfully run those things. So don't expect everything to be perfect. And of course, while we're talking about planning, we want to go back to these goals. Make sure that you set realistic and achievable goals for yourself in your chapter. as you're planning all of these fundraisers. So, for example, just looking at your chapter goals, if you want to raise $3,000, make sure that you host 10 fundraisers throughout the school year with a goal of 300 each. Right, so make sure you're breaking it down. Or for individuals, I'm going to save $100 a month, and I'm going to fundraise $100 a month for 10 months, and then I'm going to get there. So think about what you need to do, what the steps are to get there, and what specifically you need to do in order to reach your goals. Any questions? No? Rock on. You guys have got the nodding head thing down. It's awesome. So I think both of you guys know this, but we have our online fundraising page, empowered.org. I know it's not the prettiest in the world, but it kind of doesn't matter, because what matters is you telling your story. So it's not like somebody's just going to happen upon this page and donate to your account. But it's really about, this is a big marketing thing, right? Like, how are you marketing yourself? How are you setting up those posts, those emails to get people to actually donate to your page? So making sure that you're adding, if you're posting it on social media, if you're posting it on Facebook, add photos, add anecdotes, tell your story about Movement Exchange, and don't be afraid to do it as often as needed. I think people get really intimidated, myself included. People get really intimidated with asking for money, and it is uncomfortable, but ultimately you'll be surprised by who donates to your page if you just are throwing it out there. If you're putting yourself out there, putting yourself in a vulnerable situation to tell your story of why this is something that's important to you, you'll be surprised by who connects with your story and your mission. So don't forget that, as you're posting these, if you're emailing your family and friends, what have you, be sure to, draw them in somehow, right? It's like creating that first line in a book. When you open that book and that first sentence that you read is like incredible and it keeps you going. So what is your first sentence? What are you going to put on there that makes people want to click to go to this page and donate to your cause? Excuse me. And so the way that this gets set up, if you don't know already, is that you just send me your whoever's name and email, whoever wants to get this page set up, and I enter you guys in. You get an email login with a temporary password, and then you change your password, and you can update your picture and your little biography thingy right here where it says passionate about, and then you can send the link. There's also social media shares right there where you can share the page on social medias. So they try to make it a little bit easier for you that way. But your goal will automatically be set at $13.90. And your deadline, of course, will be set to 1 month before your exchange, as that's when the final program donation is due. If for some reason, like if your chapter does group fundraisers, maybe everybody gets $100 from your fundraisers, let me know and I'll lower your donation goal to $12.90. So like if you send in a big check to me, that's supposed to be divided by everybody who obviously don't. If somebody's like an awesome fundraiser and you don't want them to over fundraise, just let me know and I can edit their donation goal so it'll match, like it'll subtract what they might have gotten from a group fundraiser. Questions? No. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so this is a little bit what I was talking before, but with online fundraising, making sure that you're writing your own story. So a couple of questions that you might want to ask yourself before putting the word out there, before kind of creating these messages, or even before writing your little biography on that page. Who's the fundraiser for? Obviously for you as an individual, or maybe it's for your chapter, or maybe it's, even if you can kind of twist this question, who is the fundraiser for? Is it really for you? Is it for the kids here in Panama? What are you fundraising for? Obviously an international dance exchange, or maybe if you're using fundraisers for your chapter dues. Where are you going? When is the exchange? And then most importantly, why is it important to you? Why is it relevant to your current situation or your past? What issues does it address? Who is impacted by the work? And then finally, why are you involved in this project? What makes you want to be a part of this? And what impact might it have on you? Some tips is that prioritize your information. You want the most important information to be at the very, very start. What's going to draw people in and get them hooked to read more. No fewer than 400 words. I think 400 words is a pretty good amount of space to tell your story. And then, of course, lastly, personalize it. Make sure that you're telling, maybe your past exchange with Movement Exchange, your past experience with Movement Exchange, or your past experience as a dancer. What is it about you? I think when we're, posting on social media or trying to get friends and family to donate, really, they don't know the kids down here in Panama. They probably never heard about Movement Exchange before. So the thing that they care about is you. So how can you express yourself within these stories as well? Oh wait, sharing your campaign. So of course we've talked about maybe a little bit about how you can talk about this fundraising, how you can present your own story, but then how do you actually get it out there? I think social media is really powerful. So using Facebook and Instagram, Instagram is nice. It has that little website section that you can put on your biography. Maybe you put your fundraising link in there, and then every week you do a MoveX Monday post or something like that. So maybe even creating a ritual for yourself on social media to keep reminding people of your fundraiser and your campaign. If you're doing any emails, or maybe even, if you're messaging people on Facebook, I think Facebook Messenger is a really good route to go as well. What I've noticed is the more that you can kind of personalize who you're sending it to. So instead of me saying, hey guys, I am fundraising for this, if I, message Erin directly, I say, hey Erin, how are you doing? Hope you're doing really well. I just wanted to let you know, blah, blah, blah. Right? So Erin's probably way more likely to respond if she's getting an email that's directly addressed to her. So that's something to think about as well. If you are sending mass emails in any way, make sure that you segment your contact list. Maybe your best friend from high school will respond differently than an email to your grandma, right? Those are two very different audiences. Or maybe it's a family and friends. So think about who your audience is and what kind of information do you need to put in there to get them to donate. Yes, this next one. You can never have too many photos or videos. I know that the Empowered platform isn't great for posting pictures, but what's going to drag people in? Maybe seeing photos and videos on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, in emails. Make sure that you show why you're doing it. I think pictures are really valuable and show the experiences. They show emotions, sometimes more so than words can. And then, of course, videos, if you have been on an international dance exchange before, showing videos from that experience as well. Those are really powerful. Risk vulnerability and be persistent. It's okay if nobody reads your message. It's okay if, maybe they do read it and ignore it. But maybe, if you send an email or a message or post on Sunday night, again on Tuesday morning, again on Thursday afternoon, somebody is going to see one of those posts who maybe didn't see any others. So make sure that you're persistent. Some people might not see it the first time, and they might not see it the second time, might not even see it the third time. So keep going, and I'm sure they will let you know if they're actually annoyed. And that's okay too. Use various mediums. So kind of get outside of the box a little bit. I know I've been messaging social media a lot because I think you can meet the most amount of people that way. but maybe it's not the most personable. Maybe try calling your aunt and uncle and saying, hey, I'm going on this really cool thing. I was wondering if you want to just support me through this process. It's going to be a really amazing experience. Or even talking to them at Thanksgiving or Easter or whatever. Whatever you need, you know, reaching out to people in new ways, whether it's a phone call, an in-person meeting, or even email. I feel like email with Facebook and social media and everything, you know, I'm sure we all get a ton of emails, but maybe try emailing your friend and they're like, oh, why did Alice email me? That's weird. And then they'll read it and they'll be like, oh, that's super cool. Who knows? Get creative. So this is a fun one because you can kind of see, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Like the ALS challenge, right? The ice bucket challenge, like that's a really creative way. Obviously it worked really freaking well. So maybe creating something like that. I know for dance marathon all the time I see like, Alice, you probably know this too, more so than I, but you'll see people like, oh, if I like reach my goal by the end of the day, I'll post like the 5 most embarrassing pictures of myself or something like that. Something that maybe they're going to get like your viewers, your followers, whoever your donors were, they'll kind of get a kick out of it and that they get something out of it as well, rather than just a feel-good moment. Update your campaign. Make sure that you show what's going on. Keep your donors updated because maybe, you know, whoever your, I don't know, one of your friends, maybe they saw your fundraiser when you were like $400 away. They're like, whatever. But then maybe when you're $100 away and you post that on there, they're like, oh man, like they're so close. And then maybe they donate $5 and help you reach that extra little bit. So make sure you're posting updates to kind of keep people on their toes a little bit too. Lastly, make sure that you're thanking your donors. Especially if this is for an international dance exchange, you know, send them photos afterwards, send them videos, send them a link to the state of the movement that comes after your exchange and be like, hey, grandma, watch this for a recap of the exchange. Or what have you, you know, there's always some really fabulous photos from an exchange. And like I mentioned earlier, photos speak a lot more than words sometimes. So yes. Oh, other ideas for thanking your donors. There's a ton of really cheap souvenirs like $1 bracelets or coasters or shot glasses or who knows what, like little trinkets. So even if you have, you know, maybe 10 big donors, you can save $10 and get them all something just a little nicer to thank them for their experience. Also, don't forget about snail mail. Everybody loves getting mail now, right? I always get so excited when I get a letter in the mail. So think about maybe printing out some pictures from your exchange and sending them in the snail mail. Okay. Group fundraisers. So the reason I love group fundraisers is not only because sometimes they can be really, really effective. If you guys didn't realize already, I love my bake sales. So, you know, sometimes they're really successful. I think the problem with a lot of these group fundraisers is that it can be hit or miss. Some weeks might be better than others. If, you know, honestly, the best time to do fundraisers when I was in school was during like midterms and finals because everybody's really stressed out and then like they always want a cookie when they're like leaving or going to the library. But like maybe right after New Year's, not such a good idea because everybody's got their New Year's resolution to lose weight, or right before spring break when they're like, I gotta get my beef bod on. So think about those even like little cultural things or timely seasonal changes that might affect your bake sales / other fundraising events. So all of these fundraising events, I'm not going to go through them, but some new ones that are on here are, let's see, Lyft or Uber. I think UCSD did this, right, with Lyft, is like trying to get them to donate, like if you use a certain code, they'll donate a portion or something like that. Salsa night. So having like a fun salsa night where you teach salsa and it's donation based, or Dancing with the Stars. I forget, wasn't that Butler that did it, or no? Who made it?
You did. We like thought about it and we like started to set it up, but we just didn't have like enough interest to make it like really successful. So we tabled it for the time being.
Cool. Well, I think I did get that idea from you guys, so kudos. It's a great idea, and hopefully that's the thing. Is like good call on your part that you kind of called it off, and that's something that's okay. And recognizing that as well is really powerful. So all of these lists are in your chapter resources. I'll show you those at the end. Let's see. Okay, rock on. We're almost there. Okay, cool. So opportunities in your community. I think one of the things that people can take advantage of more so is grants and scholarships in your community and on campus. It takes sorry, I'm yawning. Okay, it takes a little bit of research, definitely. But what I would recommend is researching into your like what funding opportunities are available for student organizations on your campus, maybe what funding opportunities are available in your college or in your departments. Sometimes departments have like grants or like grant money that's allocated to students or towards research, and seeing what's out there. So a lot of the times it just means contacting the right person to get those questions answered, and maybe there's a fundraising opportunity that you didn't even know about before. So with grants and scholarships, I was actually just at a grant training today with U.S. Embassy, so we're working on this on our end too. But I think most importantly, the very first thing you need to do is read through the requirements, right? So thoroughly read through the requirements 3, 4, 5,000 times, whatever you need to truly understand what's the mission of this grant opportunity. Is it that, providing international experiences for students, or is it more centralized? Is it providing opportunities for students by students? Something like that. So after reading through the requirements, the very first thing to do is to understand the mission of whatever organization, of whatever department, understanding the mission of this grant. Then the second thing that you have to evaluate is, how does your program support their mission, and how do our missions interrelate? Sometimes, a mission of whatever grant, whatever scholarship might be slightly different than movement exchange, but if you tweak one little thing, it works perfectly. So it's very important to not only recognize the mission, read over the requirements of that grant, but also to understand, why should they pick you? What about movement exchange, or what about the exchange? What about the trip? What about your university chapter would make you a good fit for this opportunity? And another thing to mention is that these aren't just available to universities. I think one of the most underutilized aspects is individual grants. I know UCI does this. I think WMU has in the past, and maybe some other university chapters. But make sure that you're looking into individual grants as well. Those are going to be ultimately the most fruitful, because 100% of the donation money is going towards you. And grants and scholarships are usually a little bit bigger than maybe what your grandma and grandpa can throw your way. So I would highly recommend that if students are really, really interested in these exchanges but may not have the funds to do it, make sure that you're looking into like research opportunities or whatever that may be. Okay. Business donation, that says post-exchange, like 9 o'clock. Oof. Business donation asks. I think, Butler, you guys did some business donation asks, right?
Yeah, we did. We spent like a weekend doing them.
Cool. Yeah. So you just went around to, different bars and local businesses and
Yeah, we made up a flyer and like printed a ton of them out, and then we like walked around, and we went to like a few different like major areas where there was like a lot of businesses.
Definitely. UCSD, I remember you guys did that one too, right? A while ago.
Sorry, which one?
Didn't you guys create like a business donation ask?
Yeah, we created like a general donation ask, so it was open to businesses and non-businesses too.
Gotcha. Yeah. So also being creative with whatever you're preparing for that, right? So if it's, coming really branded with like a nice folder that's like has Movement Exchange's logo on it, and you come with like all of your nicely printed pamphlets and informational sheets, that's a really good way to like give them the information, make sure that they have everything that they need. So think about, kind of put yourself in their shoes. What would they want to know if they wanted to support you? Then okay. So when applying to grants and scholarships, and even for, businesses, after their donation, make sure that you educate and engage as much as possible. So what that means, make sure that you're communicating in advance. If there's a grant that you found where, maybe you're not sure if Movement Exchange fits the bill 100%, contact them, see what's up. You might get a response, you might not get a response, and that's okay. But the best thing to do is reach out to them individually and say, sorry, what are you looking for? Right? So ask those questions, communicate in advance, see if you truly are a good fit. And of course, making sure that you're communicating leading up to the application if you have any last minute questions, and after. If you get the grant, if you don't get the grant, make sure that you follow up and either say thank you so much, or ask them why it didn't work out, because any constructive criticism and feedback is definitely going to be helpful. And then lastly, build the relationship. Make sure that you guys are keeping that relationship consistent. Invite them to your programs. Send them pictures after your international dance exchange. Whatever you need to do to make sure that they're informed on what you guys are doing and why. Okay, put your ideas into action. The almost last thing that I want to do is remind you guys that yes, it's hard sometimes. Yes, that we're all busy with school, but are you willing to go that extra mile? I want to encourage you guys, this is something that I also mentioned today on the exchange as well, is that if there's something that you want to do, if there's a goal that you want to reach, don't forget about the power of now. Take 5 minutes every day and email people, or bake an extra set of cookies that day, or contact a new organization. Who knows what? Take your time. Do it now. If there's something that will help you, that will serve your mission, serve your goal, getting you one step closer, do it, and do it now, and you'll thank yourself later. Life lessons by Adele. Okay, last thing, I'm sure you guys have probably seen some of the new resources that we have, the new Movement Exchange resources that we have, but I wanted to just take a very quick second to show you guys them, just in case anybody hasn't seen them. So if you go into your chapter resources, everybody should have access to this now. If you don't, please let me know. But the very first thing is the treasurer. So we go into the treasurer. The two most important things that are on here is the grant template for university chapters and bank account setup instructors, courtesy of UCSD. What? So this was created by Movement Exchange at UCSD, and talks about how they were able to get a bank account set up with a credit union. This grant template, every grant is going to be a little bit different, but we wanted to provide you with some wording in here that you might be able to use. One thing that I do want to mention is that if you do have a grant application, especially for a travel grant or a chapter grant, or a funding opportunity, you can send me the proposal. I would be more than happy to look over it with you and maybe provide any suggestions, etc., etc. And this kind of goes through the general outlines of what a proposal might look like. Then I'm just going to show you what's in the fundraising director. Skip the first two. We have a donation request for family and friends. So this is, oops, that was the thank you letter. Sorry. Donation request for family and friends. So if you want to send an email or a letter, snail mail, what have you, to your family and your friends, here's a little template that you guys can use that has a lot of the wording. And then, like I mentioned earlier, be sure to tell your story. Personalize it as much as you can. There's also a thank you letter in here. So if anybody does donate to your cause, make sure that you donate to that or thank them. And here's an example that you can use. We also have the same for donation requests for small businesses. This is an example of a letter that you might want to write that explains, more. It's kind of more chapter focused, more group focused. And then we also have a thank you letter template for small businesses as well. It's a little bit more on our letterhead and set up like that. The last two things are the list of fundraising ideas. So here you'll see all of the group fundraising ideas, and then of course also individual fundraising ideas. I think some of these we came up with at the leadership conference last year. This one, charity jar in your house. If you have a party, if your friends are over all the time, who knows what. If you have a charity jar in your house, everybody's got change carrying around in their wallets that they never like, or maybe they got an extra buck to spare. So putting that out of your house. Oh, and then there's the trash for cash, taking people's trash out in their dorms, because that was always the worst part of living in a dorm. And yeah, so there are all of those ideas. If you have any other ideas that come up for individual fundraisings, let me know and I'll add them to that list. The very last thing that I want to show you is just these slight directions for how to set up your Empower page. Like I mentioned, you just email me all the names and emails of everyone, and then I enter them in, and then this has a description for what to do after that. Yes. So, with that being said, are there any questions?